If you've ever found yourself staring at the words TOEFL and IELTS late at night, switching between tabs, watching videos, reading opinions, and somehow ending up more confused than when you started this episode, is for you. Because the truth is, the problem is not your effort, it's the noise around you. Everyone has an opinion, but very few people explain what actually matters for your situation. Today, we cut through all of that. No confusion, no guessing, no recycled advice, just a clear, honest breakdown that will help you finally decide which test fits your goals, your strengths, and your future. So stay with me, because by the end of this conversation, that question will no longer feel overwhelming, it will feel obvious.
That is a massive promise to make to you listening, but I genuinely believe it is entirely achievable today.
Yeah.
Because we are looking at a landscape right now in 2026 where these two specific exams are, well, they're operating as the ultimate gatekeepers to international mobility.
Right.
They are not merely testing your grammar anymore. They are the literal keys to student visas, university admissions, and international career trajectories. So the stakes for you right now are immense.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission for this deep dive is incredibly clear. We are sorting through like an absolute mountain of data, historical research, and performance analysis regarding these two titans of English proficiency.
Absolutely.
And just to be completely transparent with you, the listener, we are not going to spend the next hour naming our specific sources or reading off bibliography lists. Nobody wants to listen to an audio footnote, right?
No, definitely not.
Instead, we are synthesizing the absolute best, most factual, and current intelligence available into one seamless conversation. We want to give you the pure signal without all the exhausting static.
And finding that signal, it starts with a fundamental mindset shift. You have to understand that this is not a choice between, say, chocolate and vanilla ice cream, where it just comes down to arbitrary preference.
Right.
It is a choice about which vehicle best suits the specific jagged road you're about to drive down. Both exams are globally respected, highly calibrated instruments.
Yeah.
They measure your ability to read, listen, write, and speak.
But they do it differently.
Very differently. They approach that measurement with entirely different, almost opposing philosophies.
Oh, I love that you brought up the word philosophies, because before we even look at the timer on the computer screen or the physical paper on the desk, we have to understand the history. Like, why were these tests built in the first place? Because the era and the institutions that birthed them, they actually dictate how they judge you today. It is a fascinating piece of history.
It really is.
So the TOEFL, which stands for Test of English as a Foreign Language, was born in 1964. It was created by ETS, the Educational Testing Service.
Right, in the U.S.
Yeah, and it is deeply fundamentally rooted in the American academic tradition. It was designed to simulate a very specific environment, the English-speaking university lecture hall during the post-war boom of international education.
And that historical context is crucial. The creators of the TOEFL in the 1960s, they were looking at foreign students arriving at American universities and realizing that, conversational English was not enough.
Like ordering at a restaurant.
Spot on. A student could order a coffee in English, sure. But could they survive a 3-hour lecture on macroeconomic theory while simultaneously reading a textbook and writing a cohesive essay?
Right. That's a whole different level.
It is. That is why TOEFL was built. And then on the other side of the philosophical aisle, you have the IELTS, the International English Language Testing System.
Which came much later, right?
It did, in 1989. And it was developed jointly by the British Council, IDP Australia, and Cambridge Assessment English.
Okay.
So naturally, it stems from the British Commonwealth's educational and immigration systems. That foundational difference is the absolute key to understanding everything about how these tests function today.
Okay, let me try to put this into an analogy to see if I'm grasping the practical difference here. Think of it like taking a culinary exam.
I like this.
So the TOEFL uses what we call integrated tasks. To me, that sounds like being asked to make a complex, multi-course recipe where you have to chop the vegetables, boil the pasta, and season the sauce all at the same time.
That's a great way to put it.
Like, on the test, you read a dense passage, you listen to a professor giving a lecture about that same passage, and then you have to speak or write an essay about how those two sources connect. The reading, the listening, and the output are all happening at once. It's chaotic.
It is chaotic, but that is a brilliant way to visualize it. The TOEFL expects you to synthesize information from multiple overlapping streams simultaneously.
Because that's what college is like.
Without a doubt. It genuinely mirrors the cognitive demands of an American university classroom. You are never just reading a book in a vacuum. You are reading while the professor speaks, and then you are expected to form an articulate, written argument about both perspectives on the spot.
So if TOEFL is asking me to cook an entire meal at once, what is the IELTS asking me to do?
Well, the IELTS relies heavily on independent testing. So, using your culinary analogy, it is like being judged purely on your chopping skills in a completely quiet room.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, once you finish chopping, you walk into another room down the hall, the door closes, and you are judged exclusively on your boiling skills. The sections are distinctly isolated.
No cross-contamination.
None at all. You read, and you answer questions solely about that reading. Later, you listen to an audio clip, and you answer questions solely about that listening. They do not cross-contaminate the skills.
Okay, hold on. I have to push back on this.
Go for it.
Is one approach inherently better for measuring true fluency? Because asking someone to chop and boil at the same time, meaning reading, listening, and writing simultaneously, seems like it might be testing their working memory or their capacity to multitask rather than just testing their English.
That's a very fair point.
Right, because if I have a bad short-term memory, I might fail the TOEFL even if my English is flawless.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is not about one being objectively better at measuring language. It is about cognitive load.
Okay.
You are entirely correct that they measure different capacities for handling cognitive stress. Neither is a superior measure of fluency.
So it's just a different flavor of stress.
Basically, the TOEFL tests whether you can handle the chaotic, overlapping streams of academic information without getting overwhelmed. The IELTS tests whether you can drill down perfectly into one isolated skill without the interference of another.
I can see how that would change things for different people.
Oh, massively. For some learners, that independence in IELTS is a massive relief. They can just focus. But for others, the TOEFL's integrated approach actually feels more natural because it mirrors how they organically engage with the real world, taking in multiple inputs to form a thought.
Man, that philosophical divide between integrated and isolated is nowhere more terrifyingly obvious than in the section that genuinely keeps test takers up at night. The section that causes nightmares.
You're talking about speaking. Yeah. The speaking section. It is universally the bottleneck. It is always the section that causes the most visceral physical anxiety.
So let's dive deep into this. It's essentially man versus machine. On the TOEFL, the speaking section is 100% computer-based.
Yes, completely digital.
You are sitting in a testing center, you have your heavy headphones on, you are reading a prompt on a sterile screen, you are listening to a countdown timer ticking away, and you are speaking your response into a void, a literal microphone.
It is an intense environment.
It sounds awful. You have 4 tasks. 2 are integrated where you read and listen first, and 2 are independent where you just give your opinion on a topic.
And, the psychology of that specific performance environment is incredibly polarizing. On one hand, the TOEFL is ruthlessly efficient, standardized, and unbiased.
Because it's just a machine.
Right. The machine recording your voice does not judge your eye contact. It does not care if your hands are shaking, if you are sweating profusely, or if you are looking down at your shoes. It only records the audio of your voice for a grader to evaluate later.
So for some people, that's actually a good thing.
Oh, definitely. For a certain type of highly analytical, introverted student, this is a very safe space. It completely removes the social pressure of human interaction.
But wait, what if you are an expressive communicator? What if you are someone who uses their hands to talk, who feeds off the energy of the person they are talking to, who relies on a smile or a nod to keep their momentum going?
For those individuals, speaking to a countdown timer feels like singing alone in an empty stadium.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It is profoundly unnatural. Hearing a sharp digital beep and knowing you have a rigid 45 seconds to deliver a perfectly coherent argument can cause even highly fluent, native-level speakers to completely freeze.
Because it feels so artificial.
Spot on. The cognitive dissonance of trying to be persuasive to a progress bar on a screen is a very real psychological hurdle.
Which brings us to the stark contrast of the IELTS. The IELTS speaking section is a live 11 to 14-minute face-to-face conversation with a human examiner.
A real person.
Yeah, and it is broken into 3 parts. First, they ask general conversational questions about your life, your hometown, your hobbies. Then you get a topic card and have to deliver a 1 to 2-minute monologue. And finally, part 3 is a deeper, more abstract discussion based on the topic from your monologue.
What is fascinating here is the human element. and how it dramatically alters the testing environment.
In a good way or a bad way?
Well, both. The IELTS examiner is professionally trained to put you at ease. They nod, they smile, they use a conversational cadence to simulate a real, authentic exchange.
So it feels more like a chat.
Yes. If you are naturally social, this feels like an absolute joy. It feels less like a high-stakes exam and more like chatting with a friendly professor during office hours.
I hear you, but let's look at the flip side. If you are socially anxious, or if you come from a culture where making direct eye contact with an authority figure is considered disrespectful, the idea of a stranger scrutinizing you in real time, watching your face as you struggle to find a specific vocabulary word, that can be completely paralyzing.
Without a doubt. That is the hidden trap of the human element. You cannot pause a human.
Right.
You cannot look away from their gaze to collect your thoughts without feeling like you are losing points for confidence, even though, technically, you are not graded on body language.
It still feels like you are.
100%. The pressure of being evaluated by a living, breathing person sitting 2 feet away from you is a very different kind of cognitive load than staring at a digital clock. It requires emotional regulation on top of linguistic recall.
So, to you listening right now, I want you to ask yourself honestly, which one are you? Do you thrive when someone nods and smiles back at you, giving you that nonverbal encouragement to keep going? Or do you prefer the cold, predictable, judgment-free safety of a digital clock, a microphone, and an empty screen?
It's a question you have to answer for yourself.
Think about that carefully, because that single answer might already tell you which test you should register for tomorrow.
It is a critical self-assessment. However, we cannot stop at speaking.
Right, there's more to it.
Because once we move past the output of speaking, the way these tests feed you information, how they push data through your ears and your eyes, creates completely different sets of hurdles. Let us transition into looking at listening and reading, because the mechanics here are just as polarizing.
Let's start with listening. We're dealing with accents, academics, and what I like to call the time trap.
Oh, the time trap is brutal.
So with the TOEFL, you are getting strictly North American accents, American and Canadian, and the content is incredibly heavy. We are talking dense academic lectures.
Very dense.
You might be forced to listen to a 5-minute, uninterrupted talk on the migratory patterns of the monarch butterfly, or a deep dive into the socioeconomic impacts of the Industrial Revolution in textile manufacturing. And here's the absolute kicker. You listen once.
Just once.
There are no replays. There is no rewinding. If your mind wanders for 5 seconds, or if you miss a vital transition word, that information is gone forever.
And that specific constraint requires a highly refined skill. Aggressive, structural note-taking.
Oh, tell me more about that.
If you have never practiced academic note-taking in English, the TOEFL listening section will be a massive shock to your system. You cannot just sit back and listen passively like you are enjoying a casual conversation.
Right, you can't just zone out.
You have to actively synthesize the architecture of the lecture as it happens. You are listening for thesis statements, supporting evidence, and counter-arguments, and you must write them down in real time.
Now, compare that grueling academic marathon to the IELTS listening section. With IELTS, you are getting a global tour of accents. You will hear British, Australian, American, and maybe even a Scottish or New Zealand accent sprinkled in for flavor.
A real mix.
Yeah, and the contexts are wildly varied. You might hear a lecture in part 4, sure, but in part 1, you might listen to a phone call where 2 people are casually booking a hotel room, or a social chat between 2 students figuring out their weekend library plans.
It's much more everyday English.
Plus, and this is huge, IELTS gives you time to preview the questions on the paper before the audio even starts.
What's fascinating here is how your background media consumption directly affects your test scores. We see this in the performance data constantly.
Wait, really? Like, what I watch on TV matters?
Absolutely. If you grew up watching Hollywood blockbusters, American sitcoms, or US-based YouTube creators, the TOEFL listening section feels incredibly natural.
Ah, that makes sense.
The cadence, the slang, the vocabulary, the pronunciation, it is a familiar acoustic environment. Your brain does not have to work hard to decode the accent, which leaves more cognitive energy for understanding the actual content.
But if you grew up in a country where the education system uses Cambridge textbooks, or if you spent your childhood watching BBC documentaries, British dramas, or Australian television,
then the IELTS audio is like a warm blanket. It is deeply comforting. You understand the vowel sounds intuitively.
But there's a catch, isn't there?
There is a logistical hurdle in the IELTS that catches an alarming number of people entirely off guard. And that seamlessly transitions us into the reading section, where time management becomes a brutal, unforgiving reality.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about reading, the visual intake of information. TOEFL reading is pure, undiluted academic textbook passages. We are talking about 3 or 4 passages, roughly 700 words each.
Very long, very formal.
Dense, formal, technical vocabulary. But the questions are straightforward, multiple choice, and you answer them on the computer as you read. The text is on one side of the screen, the questions are on the other. It is very linear.
IELTS reading, conversely, is also academic in its core requirement, but it pulls from a much wider variety of sources.
Like what?
You might see magazine articles, argumentative essays, descriptive historical texts, or even workplace guidelines depending on the version of the test. And the variety of question types is famously complex.
So it's not just multiple choice.
Not at all. You are not just clicking A, B, C, or D. You are matching paragraph headings, identifying the writer's views as true, false, or not given, completing summary sentences, and labeling technical diagrams.
Here's where it gets really interesting and honestly a bit dangerous for test takers who don't prepare properly. We need to talk about that time trap in IELTS reading.
This is the one.
So in the listening section of IELTS, because it is paced by an audio track, they graciously give you 10 extra minutes at the end of the test to carefully transfer your hastily scribbled answers over to the official scannable answer sheet.
Right, they give you that buffer.
But in the reading section, they give you 0 transfer time. None. When the 60 minutes are up, pencils must go down immediately.
This is a devastating structural demand that ruins scores every single weekend. Those answers must go straight to the official answer sheet during the active 60 minutes you are given to read the 3 passages.
That sounds incredibly stressful.
It is. Every single second you spend reading a text or pondering a question is a second you are not transferring an answer to the sheet that actually gets graded. We have seen incredibly proficient students who absolutely ace the TOEFL reading section. Students who can analyze dense academic texts beautifully, completely crash on the IELTS reading section purely because of the logistical demand of that separate answer sheet.
Wait, let me make sure I am grasping the tragedy of this. You are telling me someone could have all 40 correct answers circled in their test booklet, but if they haven't moved them to the bubble sheet, they get a 0.
That is an accurate assessment. They look up, the invigilator says the hour is over, and their brilliant correct answers are still sitting in their disposable test booklet.
Oh, no.
Which means, officially, they score a flat 0 for those untransferred questions. It is heartbreaking to witness.
Like, that isn't a failure of English proficiency at all. That is a failure of bureaucratic logistics and time management.
Which is specifically why understanding the underlying mechanics of the test format is just as important as expanding your vocabulary. If you do not respect the format will penalize you, regardless of your fluency.
Okay, so we've extensively covered how you take information in through the grueling listening and reading sections. Now, how do these tests ask you to push your own original thoughts out onto the page? Let's transition into writing. It really comes down to formulas versus flair.
The writing sections perhaps diverge more clearly than any other part of the exam in terms of what kind of thinker they are actually asking you to demonstrate yourself to be.
Let's look at the TOEFL first. On the TOEFL, you have 2 writing tasks. Task 1 is integrated. Here we are, back in the kitchen with the recipe.
Right, chopping and boiling.
You read a passage for 3 minutes, it disappears. Then you listen to a 2-minute lecture that usually completely contradicts or expands upon the passage you just read. And then you have 20 minutes to synthesize them in a written response.
That's task 1.
Yeah, and task 2 is the independent task, a standard 300 to 400 word essay where you have 30 minutes to defend your personal opinion on a broad general topic.
The TOEFL writing section heavily rewards mechanical precision and structural accuracy. It is looking for a very clear, highly formulaic blueprint.
Like a 5-paragraph essay.
For sure. Introduction, thesis, body paragraph 1 with evidence, body paragraph 2 with evidence, conclusion. If you can accurately paraphrase the academic arguments you heard in the audio and read in the text and organize them into that predictable logical flow, you will score highly. It is a reliable, repeatable formula.
Now let's contrast that with IELTS writing, because this is where a lot of people stumble. Task 1 on the IELTS academic test is highly unique. You are not writing an essay.
No, not at all.
You have to write 150 words objectively describing a visual piece of data. They will hand you a line graph showing birth rates over a century, or a pie chart of a company's budget, or a map of an island before and after development, or a complex process diagram showing how bricks are manufactured.
People really struggle with this one.
And then task 2 is a 250-word essay responding to a problem, an argument, or a societal trend.
That visual data description in IELTS task, one completely surprises so many students. Why do they test this? Because in the real professional or academic world, you frequently have to translate mathematical or visual realities into corporate English.
Great, like explaining a slide in a boardroom.
Spot on.
Yeah.
It requires a highly specific, almost mathematical set of vocabulary. Words and phrases like fluctuated wildly, plummeted sharply, plateaued over the next decade, or experienced a steady upward trajectory.
Things you wouldn't normally say in casual conversation.
Exactly. I mean, without a doubt. If you have not explicitly practiced describing visual trends in English, you will be completely blindsided, regardless of how beautifully fluent you are in everyday conversational English.
So, let me see if I have this analogy right. TOEFL is essentially looking for a meticulous reporter, someone who can listen to the raw facts, organize them efficiently, and report back clearly without coloring outside the lines or adding too much personal flourish.
I agree with that.
But IELTS is looking for a persuasive columnist, someone who can analyze hard data in task 1, but also show some real stylistic flair and sophisticated rhetorical flow in their task 2 essay.
That is a brilliant framework for understanding the difference. IELTS writing, especially in that task 2 essay, leaves much more breathing room for a strong writer to showcase their unique individual voice.
So you can be a bit more creative.
You can. The graders actively want to see your advanced vocabulary range, your rhetorical elegance, your ability to craft a nuanced, sophisticated argument that doesn't just feel like a robotic template.
That sounds appealing to a lot of people.
It is. If you are someone who loves writing as a deeply expressive act, IELTS will give you the canvas to show off your capabilities. Conversely, if you find writing inherently stressful in any language and you just want a clear, rigid blueprint to follow to get your points, the TOEFL's formulaic nature is a much safer harbor.
With all these incredibly nuanced psychological and logistical differences we've discussed, it is so easy to see how terrible generalized advice spreads like wildfire online.
Oh, the internet is full of it.
Someone has one specific experience based on their unique brain, and they project it on everyone else in a Reddit thread or a YouTube comment section. So let's actively dismantle the toxic myths that force thousands of students into the wrong test center every year. We are going to demolish the danger myths right now.
I am more than ready. Let us look at the empirical data and methodically slice these fairy tales apart.
Okay, myth number 1, and I guarantee every single listener has heard this loud and clear on the internet: IELTS is easier. And I have to admit, playing devil's advocate here, if IELTS lets me chat with a friendly, smiling human being and gives me a physical pencil to underline words on real paper, how is that not objectively easier than surviving a high-speed, 3-hour digital gauntlet staring at a screen?
It is a tempting assumption, but it is categorically false. Saying one test is universally easier is like saying swimming is objectively easier than running.
It depends on the person.
100%. It depends entirely on the biological and psychological makeup of the athlete, or in this case, the test taker's brain. Unstructured human interaction is unpredictable. For an introvert, a smiling examiner is a source of immense pressure, not comfort.
Right.
If you are highly analytical, deeply comfortable with technology, and used to the structure of American academic English, the TOEFL is your swimming pool. You will glide through it.
And if you're not,
if you are naturally conversational, a strong, expressive writer, and a tactile thinker who needs to hold a pencil to process information, the IELTS is your running track. Neither is universally easier. They simply expose different weaknesses.
that makes total sense when you frame it around the individual's cognitive style. Okay, myth number 2. American universities only accept TOEFL. I hear this panic from students constantly, assuming the U.S. border is closed to British tests.
And that assumption might have been true 25 years ago, but in the landscape of 2026, it is completely, hopelessly outdated. The vast majority of major U.S. universities happily and readily accept both.
Really? They treat them equally?
They do. Admissions departments have highly sophisticated rubrics and conversion tables for understanding specifically what a 7.5 on the IELTS means compared to a 100 on the TOEFL.
Good to know.
There might be a tiny handful of hyper-specialized regional programs that hold on to a historical preference, but as a sweeping general rule, the United States higher education system is entirely open to IELTS. You must always verify on your specific program's website to be safe, but do not assume you are locked out of the American dream just because you took the test with British origins.
Okay, myth number 3. Your raw English level dictates your test choice. Meaning, the advice usually goes, if you are a struggling beginner, take this one. If you are an advanced near-native speaker, take that one.
Also entirely false. Your raw linguistic capability is only one piece of a much larger puzzle.
How so?
Let us imagine an incredibly advanced near-native English speaker. Their grammar is flawless, their vocabulary is vast, but they happen to have severe technology anxiety. They type at a painfully slow speed of 20 words per minute, and they experience panic attacks when they hear a digital countdown timer.
That sounds like a disaster for the TOEFL.
It would be. If that highly fluent person takes the TOEFL, they will bomb it. Their raw English level will not save them from a format that triggers their technological and temporal anxieties. You must choose the test based on your psychological strengths and your logistical preferences, not solely on the size of your vocabulary.
Myth number 4, your choice is permanent. This idea that once you register for TOEFL, you are branded a TOEFL student for life and you can never cross over to the dark side.
The exam you book today is not a lifelong marriage contract. You can pivot at absolutely any time.
You aren't locked in.
No. If you take the IELTS, experience that zero transfer time trap in the reading section, and realize it is artificially destroying your score despite your great English, you can simply sign up for the TOEFL next month. The ETS and British Council test centers are not communicating with each other to ban you. You have total freedom to change your strategy if the vehicle isn't working for the road.
Which leads perfectly into the final and most pervasive myth, myth number 5. Preparing for one exam ruins your chances for the other. It's this fear that if you study TOEFL formats, you are polluting your brain and ruining your ability to ever take the IELTS.
This is wonderfully, liberatingly wrong. Core linguistic skills transfer beautifully across any format.
So the study time isn't wasted.
Not at all. If you spend 3 grueling months reading dense academic texts about biology and history to prepare for the TOEFL, your baseline reading comprehension speed will skyrocket. That underlying speed will directly and massively benefit you if you suddenly decide to switch to IELTS.
That makes a lot of sense.
And if you practice speaking fluently and maintaining eye contact for the IELTS human examiner, your raw pronunciation and vocabulary recall will improve, which will absolutely help you beat the TOEFL computer timer. The specific question formats and tricks are different, yes, but the foundational linguistic bridge you are building in your brain is universal. Improved English is improved English, regardless of the acronym on the book you are studying.
Okay, the myths are officially busted. Now that we've cleared away the fairy tales and the Reddit rumors, let's look at the cold, hard, bureaucratic realities of borders and ministries. Because at the end of the day, past all the philosophy and cognitive load, where are you actually trying to go? Let's transition into the real world, university and immigration dominance.
This is the critical intersection where your philosophical choices must yield to real-world geography.
We established that U.S. universities accept both, even if TOEFL is the historical, cultural assumption. Again, always verify on the specific program's admissions site. But what about the rest of the Anglosphere? What about the UK, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand?
In those specific Commonwealth nations, IELTS is the overwhelming dominant preference for higher education.
Okay, so it's their go-to.
Yes, most of their universities will accept TOEFL as a begrudging alternative. But IELTS is the native language of their admissions boards, so to speak. It is what they intuitively understand best.
But here is the absolute deal breaker. The massive brick wall that people run into at full speed. Immigration.
This raises an important question regarding long-term life planning, and it is a tragic trap I see brilliant students fall into repeatedly. Let us play out a very common scenario.
Lay it on me.
Say a student wants to study a master's degree in Canada, and their ultimate 10-year goal is to secure permanent residency through Canada's express entry system after they graduate and join the workforce.
Okay, that is a very common, very smart plan, so what goes wrong?
They apply to a university in Toronto or Vancouver. The university, being modern and flexible, accepts both TOEFL and IELTS for the master's program. The student looks at the tests and thinks, well, I type fast, and I'm better with computers than with human examiners, so I'll take the TOEFL.
Seems logical so far.
They prepare, they get a fantastic score, they're accepted, they move to Canada, and they study hard for 4 years. Then they graduate, they get a job, and it is time to formally apply for immigration and permanent residency. Here is the trap. Canada's federal express entry system strictly mandates IELTS, specifically the general training version, or localized Canadian tests like CELPIP. The Immigration Ministry simply does not accept TOEFL for immigration purposes, period.
Oh, wow. So all that time, all that money spent on TOEFL prep,
It was perfectly fine for getting into the university, but it was a massive, expensive waste of energy for their ultimate long-term goal. They're now forced to start entirely from scratch, pay another $250 for a new exam, and learn the IELTS formats from the ground up while trying to manage a full-time job.
That is brutal.
It is. If your overarching life plan includes immigrating, settling, and getting a passport in Canada, Australia, or the UK, IELTS is heavily, strictly mandated by the government. Australia's skilled migration visas and UK's settlement visas rely entirely on the IELTS ecosystem. Taking TOEFL in these specific long-term immigration scenarios is just creating double the work and double the stress for your future self.
So the crucial lesson here for our listener is, do not just look at the next immediate step on your journey. Do not just look at the university portal. You have to look 3 steps ahead at the country's federal border policies.
You've hit the nail on the head. The university admissions officer might happily let you in the door with a TOEFL scorecard, but the immigration minister will absolutely not let you stay in the country with it. You must align your test choice with your ultimate destination.
We've mapped the future, we've mapped the national borders. But I want to ground this in immediate reality. What about the actual Tuesday morning when you have to wake up, drink your coffee, commute to a testing center, sit down in a chair and actually take this thing? Let's talk about test day realities and logistics.
The sheer physical endurance and emotional resilience required for these tests cannot be overstated. They are marathons, not sprints.
Let's look at the TOEFL experience first. The TOEFL is roughly 3 hours, continuous. It is intense. You sit down in a cubicle, the clock starts on your monitor, and you go. Reading, listening, speaking, writing, boom, 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 one after the other with only a tiny mandated break.
It is a lot to process.
It requires massive cognitive stamina to sustain focus for that long.
And you must consider the reality of mental depletion by the time you reach the Blettle section. Imagine the biology of what is happening. You have been staring intently at a glowing screen, synthesizing dense academic material, and listening to complex lectures for over 2 hours.
You'd just be wiped out.
Your eyes are strained, your back aches, and now at your absolute lowest point of energy, you have to write a cohesive, persuasive, grammatically flawless essay. For many students, their cognitive reserves are entirely empty, and their writing score plummets, not because they can't write, but because they are exhausted.
Here's where it gets really interesting in comparison. The IELTS is segmented. The reading, writing, and listening sections are usually done in one continuous block, but the speaking section is almost always scheduled on a totally different day, or at the very least, a completely different time of day, perhaps hours later.
Depending entirely on your psychological makeup, that segmentation is either a beautiful blessing or a prolonged curse.
A curse. How so?
Well, having the speaking test on a different day means you can leave the test center, go home, eat a good meal, sleep for 8 hours, reset your brain's neurochemistry, and walk into the speaking exam completely fresh and energized. That's the blessing. But for highly anxious test takers, this segmentation just prolongs the agony. It means enduring 2 separate days of nervous anticipation, nausea, and sleepless nights, instead of just ripping the bandage off and getting it over with in one 3-hour sprint.
That makes total sense, and there is a profoundly physical component here too that we cannot ignore. IELTS still offers a traditional paper-based option. You are actually holding a physical pencil, writing on a tangible piece of paper. I feel like we underestimate how much that matters.
We absolutely do. The physical act of writing with a pencil on paper actually changes how some people process language neurologically compared to typing on a plastic keyboard for 3 hours straight.
I know, I definitely think better with a pen in my hand.
Many people do. The tactile feedback of crossing out a wrong word with a heavy line, drawing a physical circle around a key concept in the reading passage, or physically underlining the thesis statement to anchor your focus, for tactile, kinesthetic thinkers, this is an immense, unquantifiable advantage.
It grounds them.
It slows their brain down in a highly productive way, linking physical movement to memory retention. Typing on a computer, conversely, can sometimes disconnect the physical thought process from the cognitive one, making the text feel abstract and slippery.
Though, to be completely fair to the modern era, IELTS does offer a fully computer-based option now too for those who want it, which naturally brings us to the very practical logistics of speed and cost. How much is this going to hurt my wallet, and how long until I can breathe again?
In terms of the financial burden, they are remarkably similar. Both exams generally hover around the $200 to $250 mark, fluctuating slightly depending on your specific global region and currency exchange rates.
But the speed of getting those scores back, that is where the computer-based versions really changed the game.
Entirely. If you take the traditional paper-based IELTS, you are waiting a grueling 13 days for your results to be mailed or published. TOEFL official scores generally arrive in about 6 to 10 days.
But the computer-based IELTS.
That is the speed champion. You can have your official scores in 3 to 5 days. If you have missed a critical university deadline, or if an immigration officer is breathing down your neck demanding your language proof by Friday, those few days of difference between the tests can literally be the difference between visa acceptance and catastrophic rejection.
To make all of this theory completely concrete, I want to look at 3 hypothetical test takers based on massive, real-world data patterns. Let's find out where you, the listener, fit into this data. We have 3 case studies to explore.
I love looking at these composite profiles because it takes all the abstract rules we've discussed and applies them to human lives with real stakes.
Let's start with case study number 1, Aisha. She is from Bangladesh, and she is applying for highly competitive computer science master's programs in the U.S. Psychologically, she is quite shy. She is deeply analytical, and because she codes, she is a remarkably fast typist. She has had 10 years of formal, rigid, textbook-based academic English training in her home country.
Aisha is the quintessential classic TOEFL candidate.
Why is that?
Her highly analytical mind will easily break down and conquer the integrated tasks that require synthesizing multiple data streams. Her lightning-fast typing speed means the final writing section will not cause physical or mental fatigue. She can easily type 400 words in 20 minutes.
Oh, she'll breeze through that.
And most importantly, because she is shy and introverted, she completely avoids the debilitating anxiety of facing a live human examiner. She can sit in her quiet, isolated cubicle, look at her screen, speak into her microphone, and let her rigorous academic training shine without social interference. The verdict for Aisha is clear. TOEFL.
I agree. That seems like a perfect match. Let's move to case study number 2, Carlos. He is from Colombia, currently working as a mid-level manager in marketing. He wants to pursue an MBA, and he is aiming specifically for universities in the UK or Australia with a very strong desire to secure permanent residency in one of those countries afterward.
Okay, that residency part is key.
Right. And linguistically, he became fluent mostly through organic immersion, watching YouTube vloggers, Hollywood movies, and listening to international podcasts. He is naturally expressive, highly charismatic, but he absolutely hates rigid, formal computer prompts. He freezes up entirely when a digital timer beeps at him.
Carlos is the absolute textbook IELTS candidate for 2 distinct reasons.
Let's break those down.
First, his logistical goals targeting the UK, Australia, and seeking permanent residency make the IELTS ecosystem practically mandatory for his long-term visa survival. But psychologically, he is also a perfect, seamless fit.
Because of the media he consumed.
Yes, he learned his English through organic, media-rich global environments, which means a wide variety of regional accents in the IELTS listening section will feel like home to him. It will feel like listening to his favorite podcasts.
And what about the speaking test?
His charismatic and naturally expressive personality will actively charm the human examiner in the speaking test, turning an exam into an engaging conversation where he can truly perform. The sterile computer timer of the TOEFL would suppress all of his natural communicative abilities. Verdict for Carlos. IELTS.
That makes total sense. Okay, let's look at a really tricky one. Case study number 3, Priya. She is from India, currently studying medicine. She needs to satisfy language requirements for both highly demanding U.S. medical schools and the Canadian medical licensing authorities, as she hasn't decided which residency match she will pursue.
Keeping her options open.
Strategically open. She is highly organized, meticulous, and incredibly strong in both structured academic writing and face-to-face clinical communication. She is a linguistic powerhouse who could theoretically score top marks on either test.
Priya represents the purely strategic choice. Because she is equally strong in both formats and has no psychological vulnerabilities to either the computer or the human examiner, her decision should be based entirely on bureaucratic efficiency.
So it comes down to paperwork.
Pretty much. She needs to keep doors open in both the U.S. and Canada. As we established earlier, Canada's professional medical licensing and federal immigration systems heavily favor and often strictly require IELTS.
Right, the express entry trap we talked about.
Exactly. U.S. medical schools, however, are flexible and will readily accept IELTS. Therefore, if she takes the IELTS, she successfully opens multiple country borders and licensing boards with a single highly efficient test score. If she took the TOEFL, she might satisfy the American schools, but would immediately hit a bureaucratic brick wall in Canada, forcing her to retest. For Tria, strategic efficiency dictates the choice.
Verdict.
IELTS.
So I am speaking directly to our listener right now. Which of these three sounds like the voice echoing in your head? Are you the analytical, tech-comfortable Aisha? Are you the expressive, globally-minded Carlos? Or are you the highly strategic, multi-border Priya?
Identifying closely with one of those psychological profiles is usually the exact moment the fog lifts for a student and the choice becomes obvious.
I see where you're going with this, and it brings us to the ultimate question. How do you actually make your final choice today, right now, after this deep dive? Let's lay out the definitive framework to decide and the specific tragic mistakes you absolutely must avoid. Let's start with the mistakes.
There are 4 critical, recurring mistakes we see destroying students' dreams year after year. Mistake number 1, following a friend's choice blindly.
Oh, this happens all the time.
Your friend's brain is not your brain. If your highly extroverted friend took the IELTS, charmed the examiner, and loved it, that does absolutely not mean you, a quiet introvert who loves the safety of a keyboard, will have the same successful experience. Stop outsourcing your strategy to your peer group.
Mistake number 2, not checking the specific program minimums.
Yes. It is never enough to just look at a university website and see a green check mark next to accepts IELTS. You need to dig into the fine print and know the specific subscores required.
They can be really picky, can't they?
Oh, incredibly. Some competitive nursing or journalism programs, for example, require an exceptionally high speaking subscore, like an 8.0, even if your total overall score is perfectly average. You must read the granular details of your specific department.
Mistake number 3, the 2 to 3 week cram delusion. And I have to say, I deeply empathize with this one. I totally get why people cram. You're exhausted from university applications. You are writing personal statements. You see a test date 2 weeks out, and you think, I speak English fine every day. I watch Netflix without subtitles. I'll just wing it and see what happens. Why is that very natural instinct so profoundly dangerous here?
It is entirely understandable from a fatigue standpoint, but it is biologically impossible to succeed this way.
Yeah.
These exams do not test simple vocabulary memorization. They test deep, sustained cognitive processing under pressure.
You can't just cram for that.
No, you can't cram for a test that asks you to synthesize an academic lecture you have never heard before while managing a countdown timer. You need 2 to 6 months of sustained, consistent practice to trigger actual neuroplastic growth in your brain, allowing you to process a second language at that specific speed.
And mistake number 4, ignoring the official practice materials and trying to save a few dollars by buying a cheap third-party book and trusting their poorly designed mock tests.
This is a false economy. Only the official creators, ETS for the TOEFL, and the Cambridge IDP and British Council Consortium for the IELTS, know the true mathematical calibration of their grading algorithms and their human examiners.
So those third-party tests aren't accurate.
Not perfectly, no. A third-party test might give you a false sense of security or unnecessary panic. Always, always anchor your preparation in their official published materials.
Okay, so if we avoid those 4 preps, here is the clear 4-step framework to make your final choice today. Step 1, the destination checklist. Sit down and physically write out your dream universities and your 5-year immigration goals. If immigration to a Commonwealth country like Canada or Australia is anywhere on that list, you immediately lean heavily toward IELTS.
Step 2, assess your strengths with real data. Do not just guess based on your personality. Go online this weekend. Find one official practice reading section of the TOEFL and one official reading section of the IELTS.
And just take them.
Sit down and take them under time conditions. Then take an official speaking mock test for both formats. Look objectively at the data of your own performance. Which one yielded a higher score? Which one made you feel more panicked? Let the data guide you.
Step 3, the logistics check. Look up the physical test centers in your specific city. How much do they cost this month? When are the available dates? Do you need the score in 5 rapid days for a deadline, or do you have 5 months to prepare?
And step 4, which is arguably the most vital piece of advice we can give, commit and stop second-guessing yourself.
Just pick one.
Perpetual indecision is the absolute biggest enemy of test preparation. Every single week you spend agonizing on Reddit over, did I pick the right test? Is a week you are not studying vocabulary or practicing essay structures? Pick a lane based on your data. Trust your initial analysis and run as hard as you can.
I want to genuinely validate the anxiety our listener is feeling right now. It is a massive choice with huge financial and life implications, but I also want to push you to just take the leap. The funny thing about human psychology is that once you fully commit to one path, the generalized anxiety actually drops significantly.
It really does.
Because now you don't have a vague cloud of worry. You have a clear, specific enemy to fight and conquer.
That is profound. The uncertainty of the choice is what causes the crippling stress.
Ugh.
Once the choice is made, the preparation is just systematic work.
So once you bravely pick a lane, how do you actually walk the path? Let's get into preparation strategy and the bigger picture of what this all means. Let's say I followed the framework and I chose TOEFL. What is my daily prep strategy?
If you are dedicating yourself to the TOEFL, you need to systematically binge academic lectures. Go to resources like MIT OpenCourseWare or TED-Ed. Listen to 30-minute dense lectures on subjects you know absolutely nothing about, like marine biology or 18th century European history.
That sounds intense.
It is. Take aggressive notes, then force yourself to write a cohesive summary of that lecture immediately after it ends. This builds your mental stamina and your synthesis skills.
And what about the speaking part?
For the speaking section, set a timer on your phone for accurately 60 seconds. Pick a random complex topic like, should university tuition be entirely free? And speak to your empty room for 60 seconds without stopping, without losing your train of thought. Do it until the silence of the room stops intimidating you.
And what if the data pointed me to IELTS? What does my Tuesday night look like?
For IELTS, you must find living, breathing human beings. You cannot effectively prepare for the IELTS speaking test alone in your bedroom staring at a wall.
Because you need that human element.
Absolutely. You need to join a language. The broader and deeper your daily reading diet, the more organic and intuitive your vocabulary becomes. You will not have to sit with flashcards and memorize words. You will simply know them deeply because you have seen them functioning in context a dozen times.
I truly love how you frame this process. You don't view this as just test prep or a bureaucratic chore.
No, absolutely not. I think framing it as a chore is defeating. You are actively building a linguistic bridge to your future self.
That's a beautiful way to think about it.
I want listeners to understand this.
Yeah.
The deep discomfort you feel during a brutal listening practice, when you miss 3 answers in a row and you feel like a complete failure, that is not failure. That heat in your head is the literal physical feeling of your brain growing, adapting, and forging new neural pathways.
It's a workout.
It is. The synapses are firing, desperately trying to accommodate this massive new linguistic demand. When you finally sit in that university lecture hall in New York or that corporate boardroom in Toronto or London, you will not be relying on luck. You will be walking confidently on the bridge you are building right now in the dark.
So what does this all mean when we zoom all the way out? We've covered the deep history of 1964 versus 1989, the differing formats, the intense psychologies of man versus machine, the rigid borders of immigration, and the granular prep strategies. But there is one final, larger thought I want to leave our listener pondering tonight.
Yes, we spent all this time dissecting how to perfectly prove our English proficiency to these giant, faceless institutions. But consider the technological era we are living in right now in 2026.
It's changing everything.
We are rapidly advancing toward a world of seamless, AI-driven, real-time translation. Our phones can already speak for us in almost any language instantly, with perfect localized accents. Earbuds can translate live, face-to-face conversations with zero latency.
It's true. The technology is staggering, and it's only getting faster. I can travel to Tokyo tomorrow and have a full medical consultation using just my phone.
So this raises an incredibly important philosophical question. In a world where a piece of glass in your pocket can instantly translate a university lecture or a complex business conversation flawlessly, why do these painful, rigorous human proficiency tests still hold so much ultimate power?
Why do they matter?
Exactly. I mean, why do elite universities and powerful governments still demand that you sit in a room for 3 hours and prove it yourself?
That is a profound question. If the machine can do it, why must we?
Perhaps it is because language isn't just about the mere transfer of data. It isn't just about moving a factual data point from my brain to your brain as efficiently as possible. Language and the arduous process of acquiring it is the ultimate proof of human resilience.
Proof of your adaptability.
For sure. When you spend months learning a language well enough to pass these grueling exams, you are proving your genuine willingness to step out of your comfort zone and into another culture's shoes under immense, sustained pressure. Earning that high score is undeniable proof of your grit, your personal discipline, and your human dedication to connecting with others. And that, fundamentally, is something no artificial intelligence can simulate and no algorithm can ever fake.
What an incredibly empowering way to look at it. It's not just a language test, it's a character test. Earning that score means you have the intrinsic grit to succeed in their environment regardless of the technological shortcuts available. If this deep dive finally cleared the fog for you, don't keep it to yourself. Make sure to like this video, share it with that friend who is currently panicking over their test choice, and subscribe to this YouTube channel for more deep dives that cut through the noise. We will see you next time. Keep building that bridge.